Hi viewers, welcome to Getsio. Have you ever saw into the sky and thought what it is actually present beyond the earth? What is that infinite that is present after that? Okay, let's try to learn something about universe today. Basically, cosmology is to be known as the study of universe. It was being started by Westo Slipher in the year 1916, which was called as an observational cosmology. So, coming to the astronomy, in it, distance is everything. It's like anything you want to know about something which depends on how far away it is. It may be in the size of a cell or the size of a galaxy, you can't say by just seeing or by doing something. It can be known only by knowing the distance. If you want to know how massive it is, the amount of energy it uses, how powerful it is, we need to know the distance. If you know the distance, it is a key one, you can know everything. Going back to the history, in the year 340 BC, a Greek philosopher, Aristotle, in his book wrote two good arguments for believing that the earth was a round sphere rather than a flat plate. Remembering the flat plate, I want to discuss you about a funny thing happened by Bertrand Russell, who was a famous scientist who given a published lecture on astronomy. He described how the earth orbits around the sun and how the sun in turn orbits around the center of the vast collection of stars called our galaxy. At the end of the lecture, a little old lady at the back of the room got up and said, "What you have told us is rubbish. The world is really a flat plate supported on the back of a giant tortoise." These people at that time were very superstitious about their religious things, so nobody was ready to agree which was saying by the scientists, because there was no mathematics and no other tools to explain them. It was just an understanding of that universe. So when Aristotle was the first guy, he realized that eclipses of the moon were caused by the earth coming in between the sun and the moon. The earth's shadow on the moon was always round. It's a kind of common sense, you can understand that earth is sphere. It's not a flat plate because the shadow indicates it, right? So Aristotle thought that earth was stationary and the sun, the moon, the planets and all the stars moved in a circular orbits around the earth. He believed this because he felt for some mystical reasons that earth was at the center of the universe and circular motion was most perfect. He was profoundly believing that the orbits were circular, and this idea was elaborated by Ptolemy later in the 2nd century AD into a complete cosmological model. It has 5 orbits, the sun, the stars and the 5 planets till the time which were discovered were revolving around the earth. This was quite good because this was matching with the old Christian scriptures, so people were happy with this. But Ptolemy was not. He found something different happening in the sky. He found the moon was appearing twice as large 2 times at some places. If it is a circular orbit, this wouldn't be seen. So something was wrong. But as people were believing so much with the scriptures, he wouldn't come out of it. And it was going on, and then in 15th century, a Polish priest, Nicholas Copernicus, who came into the picture. His idea was quite different. He's actually saying the fact. He says that sun was stationary at center and that the earth and planets moved in circular orbits around sun. But nobody cares for it. Near 1st century passed before the idea was taken seriously. Then famous 2 guys, I think everyone can recognize these 2 guys, the German Johannes Kepler and the Italian Galileo Galilei, started supporting the Copernicus theory. Galileo started observing Jupiter with the telescope. As you all know that Galileo was the one who invented the telescope. Using his telescope, he was seeing into the sky always and finding new things, and the revolutionary thing what he was found is he found many other moons and natural satellites revolving around the Jupiter. So the Kepler modified the Copernicus theory, saying that It was very correct, but the orbits were not circular, they were actually elliptical orbits. Actually, he was right, but there was no other thing like a mathematical proof or something. After all, it's a science. We need some mathematical proof to know what is correct and what is wrong. So it was going on. Later, an explanation was provided in 1687 when Sir Isaac Newton published his Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, probably the most important single work ever published in physical sciences, obviously. In it, Newton not only put forward a theory of how bodies move in space and time, but he also developed a complicated mathematics needed to analyze these motions. I don't know how many of you know the calculus, the differentiation, whatever we are using today was developed by Newton back in 16th century. So he not only said how the objects behave in the space and time, he also populated a law of universal gravitation, according to which each body in the universe was attracted to each other, which is having mass. Please note this point carefully. I would discuss on this point later. And Newton was very much believed that there was no center point in this universe. In the infinite universe, every point is center, because from every point you can see infinite number of stars around. So like all stars are not at the same point. And after the creative invention of Newton, and we believe he is the father of gravity, and his inventions were till now followed in the rocket sciences and everything. But later, until 19th century, in 1929, a scientist named Hubble made a landmark observation that wherever you look, the distant galaxies are moving rapidly away from us. In quite other words, the universe is expanding. I hope you all heard this word a lot, but let's see how. This means that at earlier times, objects would have been closer together. In fact, it seemed that there was a time about 10 or 20,000 million years ago when they were all at exactly the same place, and when therefore the density of the universe was almost infinite. This raised to the concept of the Big Bang, which might be discussed in other videos of Getio. And later, Newton, as I said, Newton was considered as the father of all the gravity until Einstein came. And Einstein was not happy with his theories because, as I said, Newton was postulated the universal law of gravitation as every particle which has mass attracts the particle which also having a mass. But we can clearly observe it. Massless particle as light, which contains photons, has been attracted by a black hole which is considered to be having an infinite gravity. So this is where Einstein was not happy with Newton's law of gravity. Newton was right, but he didn't say how the gravity works. So let's see about what Einstein's theories about gravity in our next video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Getio.